The following program features copyrighted material used under the Fair Use Law. This is an educational program focusing on the preservation of said media and is not an attempt to make a profit. We will now proceed with the program.
In my previous videos, we discussed the main subjects of Cyborg Kuro-chan and its lost media. The lost episodes and lost dubs are the most well-known pieces of lost media from this series. But what if I told you there's more? If you dig deep enough, you'll come across plenty more stuff that's undocumented. Mostly stuff that's gotten little attention outside of Japan. So today, we're going to round off this series by exploring the lost media rabbit hole of Cyborg Kuro-chan. This video is a part of a documentary series on the lost media from Cyborg Kuro-chan. Part 1 focuses on the Japanese content from the anime, and Part 2 focuses on the dubs of the anime, so go have a look if you haven't seen them yet. Starting off with the manga, this is where Cyborg Kuro-chan got its start. The first 4 chapters were published in Kodansha's Comic Bonbon magazine, not beginning serialization until the 5th chapter, released in the September 1997 issue. This continued up until December 2001, concluding after 56 chapters. These were later released across 11 manga volumes from 1998 until 2002. The original manga is readily available both physically and digitally, but it's its translations that are harder to find. The manga was translated and released in several countries, but only the Cantonese and French translations are available online. There's also a fan site which features a gallery of artwork from the manga, such as their covers, as well as early versions of the characters that were later revised in their final appearances. With this being an archive of an old website, not everything is intact, unfortunately. The series later returned in 2002 under the title Cyborg Kuro-chan Extra Battle. These chapters were illustrated by Junta Uchida and ran in Bonbon from December 2002 until December 2005, with 2 manga volumes releasing in 2005 and 2006. This manga is a lot harder to find due to it not having a reprint or digital release like the other manga. The versions in Bonbon were also believed to have been printed in colour, while the versions in the manga were black and white. Uchida also produced some Saikuro fan art before her stint as the illustrator for Extra Battle, and a lot of her fan work is also hard to find. It could be possible that she's distancing herself from the series, but for whatever reason we don't know. The original manga did end up being reprinted. In 2012, we had 2 volumes titled Gatling Selection, which were compilations. And then we had a 6-volume re-release of the original manga from 2015 to 2016. These releases were mostly the same, but they all featured new cover art, and a gag from Chapter 8 involving Snoopy was edited in the 2015 re-release. The new volumes are also available digitally and feature brand new chapters at the end of each volume. Outside of the manga, we had several other books based on the series. Most of these were Japanese exclusives, but we have a couple releasing in other places as well. Firstly, there was the Encyclopedia book. This was an introduction of sorts, featuring artwork from both the manga and anime. This only had a physical release in March 2000, and I do actually have a copy of this book. It's just the really thick pages make it hard to scan without damaging the book, so I haven't preserved it digitally. There was also a sticker book released in June 2000, with only its cover available to view online. This will be a hard one to preserve, since most copies likely have the stickers removed. There are also 2 picture books released in November and December 2000 that are based on the anime's first 2 episodes. I also own these books, and was successfully able to scan them and share them online. There was also lesser known material featured in Japanese publications aimed at younger audiences. Kodansha publications such as Comic Bomb and TV Magazine are known to feature promotional material for the manga, anime, and merchandise. There's also other publications that could have featured the series in some form. The best chance of finding some of these is to check issues of Bomb and Telemaga from the periods of the manga and anime's run. It may also be worth gambling on other children's publications from said times. We unfortunately don't know much about the other books. First up, we have this colouring book released in Italy. This was likely included with the Italian DVD and has been scanned and shared online. There was also several books released in Taiwan that we know very little about. All we have are these listings on auction sites, so any other info of these would be greatly appreciated. So, we have a new bit of information that there were some publications released in Space Toon magazine. These are basically just like the Japanese and Taiwanese picture books, but I think they look redrawn. Like, some of the colours don't match some of the scenes, like one of the ones here, you'll notice Suzuki's sweater's a different colour. So yeah, it almost looks like they're redrawn anime screenshots, but just thought I'd point these out because I didn't mention these in the video because these are a very new discovery. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and just thought I wanted to mention that, and let's carry on with the rest of the video. During the series' peak, a huge ton of merchandise was released. Most items released exclusively in Japan, with some releases occurring in other countries. We even saw some merchandise releasing exclusively in other countries, such as plushies released only in Hong Kong. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know a whole lot about the merchandise. If only there was someone else who could do the work for me and knows a bit more about this stuff than I.
Dr. Go, crank that soldier boy!
Me, I present to you my newest invention to stop Kuro.
Many of you know that Cyborg Kuro-chan is a series filled to absolute brim with lost content. From lost episodes that were never released, lost dubs, and so much more. One section of lost content that is its own rabbit hole and doesn't get as much recognition as the merchandise. Released in Japan in 1999 and 2000, the information about the merchandise, even in its native Japan, has become very obscure to the point that for a good chunk of the items, we only know of their existence thanks to one or two images. Of course, for any media that gets an international release, there's merchandise released outside of its native territory, but for now I'll be focusing on the Japanese side of the merchandise. Due to the series getting a ton of popularity in Japan, a buttload of merchandise was released. Interestingly, some merchandise was made to promote the manga and released before the anime was finalized or even in production. The first pieces of merchandise were the Yujin figures, which are thankfully not the hardest to come across and usually go for pretty cheap. With Tomy being Kuro's master toy company, a ton of merchandise was released from a line of figures called the Uchimakuri figures that are all customizable, a sleeping Kuro Metatabi keychain plushes, Balborgs that are motorized, a battery-powered Kuro Me figure, a board game, cards, and custom sets that have weapons to customize the figures with, and a toolbox to store the figures. As you can tell, there was a ton made by Tomy, but these are better documented than the rest. For example, the figures were shown off at Tokyo Toys from 1999 with other Tomy products, which I'll talk more about later. What also really stands out about the Tomy merchandise is how diverse the line is, including one of, if not the only pieces of Dr. Go, Shinbozu Kuro, Gatai, also known as Wombo Combo Kuro, Val Damage Kuro, Combat Kuro, and Vice merchandise. Thankfully, the Tomy figures are better documented and still findable. Heck, even import stores in the early 2000s carried the figures, mainly because of the designs and the figures being a fun toy. Also, some of the images were prototypes, which is pretty cool. Well, there is a Tomy catalog that did show off prototypes, so the images were most likely sourced from that catalog. Also, there's really cool history to the first custom set. Similar to the Mega Man series boss contest, Kodansha had a contest where fans across Japan could send in their ideas for the weapons that the winner would have their weapon ideas in the first custom box set. And thankfully, some of the winners are documented, and it's pretty funny to see the fans cringing over their past work. To promote the anime and the Konami Game Boy Color games, Konami wanted to join on the merchandise bandwagon. In normal Kuro-chan fashion, the merchandise produced by Konami is really undocumented and insanely hard to find. Even the plushes, which are arguably the most common pieces of merchandise made by them, never appear for sale. There's also keychains and a light-up remote control figure set, and all of those are still insanely hard to find with the Google search and on Japanese secondhand marketplaces like Yahoo Japan Auctions and Mercari. If it wasn't for the secondhand marketplaces, we wouldn't know about most items that will be discussed. To start off, these figures are really scarce and haven't appeared in a decade is the Kuro and Me cards. Only one image of the Kuro exists and one list from 2012 of the Me exists. It thankfully contains images of the packaging and a close-up of the cart. There was most likely a Metatabi and Runaway Kuro in carts as well, since Konami would make different sets of merchandise with Kuro, Runaway Kuro, Me, and Metatabi. Also released by Konami is the Battleborg Water Square keychains. Only Kuro, Runaway Kuro, and Metatabi are known to exist. There definitely is a Me in the set, but he hasn't been archived yet. And now we're going to go into the more well-known products that Konami produced, is the plush set. The plushes are handmade and consist of Kuro with a Gatling gun, Kuro, Metatabi, Me, and Runaway Kuro. Well, there's a Gatling gun plush that might be in the set, and exists in this photo with Kuro and Me and a Kuro cart. And it's most likely from Konami because they're all together from the same set, and sadly that's the only image of the Gatling gun that we know of. Last but not least, there's a lost set of 4 figures that have the same characters I mentioned before, and they're called the real Cyborg Kuro-chan figures, and there's no information on them outside of this catalog image promoting them in UFO Catcher. It's most likely the merchandise made by Konami was released around autumn of 2000, so that explains why they're so difficult to find and that Konami didn't produce a lot to begin with, and it's a really big shame because they are my favorite pieces of merchandise for the series. Of course, there's more than just figures and plushes that were released, so there's a lot of random pieces of merchandise, and due to time, there'll be no slideshow. With so much merchandise being released for the series, some were never released. The Nyan Nyan Army figure that was shown off in Comic Bomb Bomb, and the Tomy Jumbo Sleeping Kuro plush that was shown off at World Hobby Fair 1999. Also shown off at World Hobby Fair 1999 was the original design of the custom set Runaway Kuro figure. That this prototype was used in some issues of the manga. Sadly, these are probably the last remains of the figures since manufacturers would throw away or give prototyping samples to the employees. With how much merchandise was made for the series and with how PB wanted Kuro to be the next Pokemon Doraemon, the merchandise is one of the big factors that led to the anime's demise. But I'm pretty thankful that we got the merchandise that we did, because without it, there will be barely any figures, plushes, and other random miscellaneous stuff for the series.
I'd like to apologise for that very somewhat convenient broadcast intrusion. Also, hang on, one of the crews just passed me a note. See, I did the work for you. Remember to credit me, Jake Mullins. Alright then. I'll leave that guy's name in the comments. I'm guessing he's got like a YouTube or an Instagram or something like that. Anyway, thanks for the help, and let's get back to the video. Of all of the Cyborg Kuro-chan lost media, this is probably one of the most mysterious pieces. In 2013, this artwork was posted to a Twitter account promoting the Gatling Selection manga. The artwork was dated to October 1998 and featured various drawings of the characters. The tweet's description reads, "The Phantom Kuro-chan anime and secret Setei materials are now available." It's unknown if this pitch was for the final animation, or if it was an earlier pitch that fell through. It's mentioned on Wikipedia that this was for a pitch that was canned after the bankruptcy of the company involved, which if true would be super ironic. Imagine that, 3 companies going bankrupt who were involved with the same adaptation. The designs also have a more detailed look, and seem to be based on the first chapter of the manga, such as with Dr. Go. Despite the lack of information on these, they're incredibly fascinating to look at. Maybe someday we'll get more information on this early pitch and what happened to the company. Continuing from the topic of anime production, it's time to talk about the materials from the final series. As mentioned in part 1, the anime had a troubled history, which eventually led to the shutdown of 2 key companies involved. As a result of this, many of the show's production materials were metaphorically scattered around. Most of the materials that are available online come in the form of animation cells, drawings, layouts, and background paintings. We can assume most of these were made available after PB's bankruptcy, when they probably had to sell off a lot of their assets. Some artwork was acquired by Hong Kong-based company Animation International, who dealt with the licensing and distribution rights for the anime in other Asian countries. A lot of these early 2000s home media releases from these regions use said assets, which come in the form of art from some episodes, as well as some stock artwork. The rest of the materials are very scarce. Stuff such as storyboards and scripts haven't surfaced in any form. The only time we got close was an image for the episode 68 script, and some storyboards from episode 4 that were used as a model sheet of sorts. Speaking of the paperwork, a lot of model sheets and other material also haven't surfaced. Based on some of these cover pages, we can assume that each episode will have 2 sets of model sheets, one for the main cast and another for side characters and episode specific content. The main character set has been leaked through sellers online. However, the first sheet of Me, and both for Dr. Go and Suzuki, are missing from the set. The entire set specifically for the lost 67th episode were also leaked and is available in its entirety. A handful of additional pieces have also been found. There's also promotional pieces which use model sheet artwork, and possibly more that have yet to be found. Despite it being 2 decades since the end of production, we may end up seeing more artwork over time. Series director Nobuhiro Takamoto is believed to have several model sheets and other materials according to voice actress Mikiko Omoto, who met him during the 2016 meetup. And with the amount of animation cells going up for sale, we'll definitely see more of those over time. One last thing which is a little weird is that no drawings after episode 53 have surfaced, with the episode 67 model sheets being the only materials to come from the episodes using digital ink and paint techniques. However, this could be chalked up to the producers not getting the work back from the studios who they outsourced the work to. But who knows? At the height of its popularity, several Saikuro-themed events were held across Japan. These were held across different venues throughout the country, and offered a variety of activities, such as a Kuro mascot you could take photos with, exclusive merchandise, and some appearances from series creator Naoki Okoshi and Tomy publicist Bibi Azami. Most of these events were to promote the series, but some showcased official and upcoming merchandise, such as the 1999 Tokyo Toy Show. A handful of others have online documentation, but mostly come through descriptions on old websites. A few other pieces of documentation exist, such as photos from an event held in Hokkaido, merchandise from an event in July 2000, and a couple photos that haven't been matched to a specific event yet. We also have a commercial for an August 2000 event held in Tokyo, as well as the possibility of others that were promoted through Kodansha-owned publications. Since most of these happened 20 plus years ago, we still have lots of holes in the documentation of these. Maybe more info from yet to be discovered sites and old books could shine more light on these lesser known pieces of Saikuro history. There's also a couple oddities with these events that I feel like bringing up. We had an event in 2016 which featured staff and voice actors from the anime. There's lots of documentation on this, including some from the main guests. There were also some different mascots that appeared during a live performance of the anime's opening in Hong Kong by singer Kelly Chen. This is their only known appearance, so it's unknown if there were also events in Hong Kong, or if these costumes appeared elsewhere. Cyborg Kuro-chan is well known for its video games, specifically the 3 released by Konami. The first 2 games released in 2000 for the Game Boy Color, and are mostly on-rails adventures with lots of destructions and plots loosely based on the anime. The third game released on the PlayStation in 2002, and is a side-scroller shooter with more varied gameplay and an original story. Since these are older titles, they haven't been re-released. It's fortunate that their ROMs have been shared online, allowing fans to easily emulate them. Their music has also been shared online, and we've even been able to find a few tracks that didn't make it into the final game. Aside from the game's music, very few other pieces have been ripped from the games, including the sprites and sound effects. Most of the cutscene dialogue from the PS1 game has been ripped, but other than that, we're still waiting on the preservation of everything else. Just an unscripted update, I want to note that there are currently some ongoing efforts to document parts of these games. We've got a few people on the Discord server who are trying to basically crack the code of the PS1 game and try and get some of its assets, like the sprites. And I don't really know how it's going. I'm not exactly following it because I know nothing about this kind of stuff, but I'll definitely make an update about this if we manage to find something. And yeah, there's also another very recent update related to the first Game Boy Color game. We have a piece from issue of Comic Bonbon, which is kind of like a promotional thing for weapon designs, I believe. And there's some screenshots which don't match anything from the final game. And the poster says that it potentially could be from like an early build or an early ROM of the game, which has yet to leak, by the way. So this is a brand new kind of part to this rabbit hole, I guess. So if there's anything new on that, I highly doubt there will be, because it's like it's probably private collector stuff, that. But yeah, if there is anything, I'll let you know. And that's the known game outside of Japan. is this pachinko game released in spring of 2001. Released by Okamura Yuki Co. Limited, the game takes heavy influence from the anime, with several animations being based on scenes from the series. Many promotional videos and TV shows from the time show this machine in action. My knowledge of these machines is very limited, so I don't know if there's any way to rip the assets from these. But that's not it. There's actually a fifth game that had very little documentation. Released in the early 2000s by Taiwanese company Lonai Soft, it plays very similarly to the PS1 game, with a more colourful look resembling the anime. It even uses some of the anime's art assets as promotional material. The game appears to be available somewhat through online copies, and members of the Discord server are able to get the game running on older operating systems. However, this version seems to be missing the in-game music. Based on other gameplay online. To end this video, we'll be talking about something a little more niche that's still kind of interesting. The series peaked in the late 90s and early 2000s, during a time where many people were still discovering the new experience of the World Wide Web. Most of these were official sites, promoting the merchandise, the anime, the games, and more that have yet to be found. Due to their age and the lack of interest at the time, most of these have sadly not been archived and are now mostly blank slates. There are some fan sites that have different levels of documentation. Some are message boards available in their entirety, while others are fan sites with missing images. There's also some that have just recently become problematic, with the discontinuation of Flash. The websites I mentioned here are Japanese, but there's likely others from different countries that we have yet to discover. But this is very much a developing search, as there's likely still many websites we've yet to discover. But that just scratches the surface of Cyborg Kuro-chan and its lost media rabbit hole. This whole thing is like archaeology. We keep discovering new things from the past that changes the story of the series and its fandom. I can guarantee something new will come up that renders this video out of date in some way. This has been a fun ride discussing the lost media in depth, and educating both old and new fans. Thank you for sticking by as I went on this journey to showcase the importance of finding stuff like this. Also, thank you to everyone who contributed research, links, and even additional narrators who agreed to help out. As the series turns 25 years old, I'm still optimistic as a lost media enthusiast that more of this content will be discovered over time. Some stuff has likely had its fate sealed, like the lost episodes and the older websites, but content like the lost dubs and older books could still be out there, with their owners not realising their importance. If you think you can help in any way at all, feel free to join the Discord server link below, as many of these searches are still ongoing. Also, expect some shorter follow-up videos as new discoveries are made. Anyways, this was Devo, and remember to stay fresh and stay searching.